Hey everyone, welcome here. So in this section we are going to configure your IPSec site-to-site VPN between the Palo Alto firewalls. So let's get started. So what we have is, in the topology you can see that we have got PAFW1 which is acting as my site 1, and PAFW3 which is acting as my another site over here. And this is the tunnel interface or tunnel network, that is 172.16.12.0/24 as highlighted here. Okay, so this will be my tunnel network between the two sites, and this is my interesting subnet, right? So this is my LAN subnet of my PAFW1, LAN subnet of my PAFW3, and whenever these two LAN subnets will communicate to each other, I ensure that their traffic will hit over this tunnel and it will communicate securely, right? So very simple. So PAFW1 and PAFW2 will be my IPSec peers. This is my tunnel network, and always make sure that the tunnel network is always a private network address, okay, and they are binded to this particular IPs. So my public IPs are 123.112.0.1 and 202 as simulated over here. Okay, so this is my site 1, this is my site 2, my public IPs, they are reachable to each other, and I will be establishing this particular tunnel between the two sites on this particular 172.16.12.0 subnet, and my goal is to make sure that when this interesting traffic communicate to each other, their traffic is encrypted via the IPSec VPN. Okay, so with that in mind, let's get started. So let's log into PAFW1 first. Okay, and likewise let's log into the PAFW2 as well. I just powered it on and defined this PAFW. I considered that, although it's like 3 in my diagram, but I considered that, you know, PAFW2 in my discussion. Okay, so this is FW1 and FW2 when I discuss. Okay, so yeah, I have already done the initialization with the management IP on that second firewall. So let's log in. All right, so first thing first, you know, before I do this configuration, I've taken a backup before I go and configure any site-to-site VPN. So you can always do that. So under device, you can always save a name configuration snapshot, right? So I've already saved it, and you can see that if whenever I need to load it, so this is like v4 VPN config, right? So this was saved. Okay, so yeah, so I can always load that before before VPN config. Let me load that configuration. Okay, so I can always check my status over here in the taskbar. Likewise in FW2, I can go to the device. I've already made a backup, so I've already saved this name configuration, so I can go ahead and load it, and the name is, you know, the default config, right? So click on OK. All right, so let's go ahead and, you know, start the implementation. So what we need first, right? So on your PAFW1, okay, you need to have, you know, two interface, that is Ethernet 1/1, which is connecting to your private LAN, and Ethernet 1/2 that is connecting your public facing WAN. Both the interface should be part of the inside of the trust zone and the outside of the untrust zone, and the respective IP has to be configured, right? And you need to have a tunnel interface, okay, say tunnel 1, and on that it should be a different zone. Let's say the tunnel interface should belong to another zone called as a VPN zone, and make sure that you configure an IP address from this particular subnet 172.16.12.subnet on this tunnel interface. So basically, two physical interface, two zones, and two IPs and one tunnel interface that belongs to the VPN zone, and the respective IP on that tunnel interface has to be configured. And the same thing I have to do it for the second firewall over here, right? So both the physical interface will be part of two separate zones, IP addresses as per the scenario, and tunnel interface has to be configured. It will be part of the VPN zone, and an IP address from this subnet has to be defined. So let's do that particular process first, right? So first thing first, what I'm defining here, let me write down the steps. So IPSec VPN, or S2 as a site to site VPN implementation steps, right? First point is configure the three zones, which is say inside, outside, and the VPN zones. Next is assign the inside, outside, and tunnel interface with respective IP address and zone configurations. Okay, so let's do that to process first. So I'll go to PFW1, I go to my network, I click on zones, and you can see I've got two zones that is already been created, your trust and your untrust. So already Ethernet 1/1 is joined to the trust, and Ethernet 1/2 is joined to the untrust domain. And if you look for the interfaces, so I have got the Ethernet interface. So it 1/1 is already having the respective IP as per the scenario. 10.1.1.2.0.1 and 123.1.1.2.0.1 is given to ETH 1/2, and a management profile for ping is also assigned over here, and it is part of the default virtual router, right? And this is the first one being the inside interface, and this one being the outside interface. So all good. Next is I need to create a zone called as a VPN zone, and assign the tunnel interface over here. So I create one zone over here, so name as VPN zone. The zone type is a layer 3 zone. That's it. So I keep everything as default over here, and next I go to the interface, I select this particular tunnel interface type, okay, and then I add a tunnel interface over here. So tunnel, let's say it's tunnel 1. So this is say site A tunnel interface, okay. Virtual router belongs to the default virtual router, security zone belongs to that VPN zone. Now IPv4, as per the diagram, it should be 172.16 say 12.1, okay. So IP is 172.16.12.1/24. That's the IP. No, for IPv6 I can attach a management profile, although it is not recommended, but just for labbing purpose I'm just allowing that ping on that tunnel interface for testing purpose. All right, so yeah, it says, I know it's not recommended to attach management profile to the interface, but just for lab purpose I'm doing it. All right, my tunnel interface has been created with the IP address, and also it's part of the VPN zone. So likewise, I go to PFW2 now. I go to network, I go to zones. Okay, I've got an inside and an outside. My Ethernet 1/1 belongs to inside, 1/2 belongs to outside, which is right. And if I go to PFW2 and if I look for the interfaces, look for the Ethernet ports, I've configured the inside and the outside with the respective IP address, as you can see over here, for both inside and outside. Now I need to configure my tunnel interface. So tunnel, let's say it's tunnel 1 again. This is site B tunnel interface. I keep it to the default virtual router. I keep it to the VPN zone. Okay, so it's not there, so I can create a zone from here directly. So I can say it's part of the VPN zone. Type is layer 3, which is there. Okay, all right, so VPN zone has been created. Yep, and IPv4, I can add the IPv4 as 172.16. I believe it's 12 dot, yeah, so it is 12.2 12.2/24. Advanced, attaching that management profile which has the ping enabled for testing purpose. Accept the warning and say yes. So yeah, so all my physical interface, the zones and the tunnel interface has been configured. Next is, I should think about the routing, right? So when PAFW1 wants to communicate to the branch office subnet, which is right here, which is 172.16.1.0, the next hop should be, and the traffic should lead over this particular tunnel, right? That means the next hop should be the tunnel IP address. Okay, likewise, same thing when PA2 wants to communicate to 10.1.1.0 subnet, the next hop should be the tunnel IP address configured on PA1. Okay, so we need to configure a static routing, to on both the sides to reach each other's LAN subnet, right? So let's go ahead and write down the step: configure static routing to reach each site private LAN subnet using the tunnel IPs as the next hop gateways. Okay, so let's go ahead and configure that. So I go to PFW1, I go to virtual routers, and I go to the default virtual router. I go to static routes. So I have the previous configs in place, that let it be there. So my job is to create a new static route, so which is static route to reach, I believe over here is 172.16.1.0. so SR to 172.16.1.0, which is your BR2 LAN, right? So I just this is just the name. So this is the real destination, 172.16.1.0/24. okay, next hop is an IP address. I believe the interface has to be given as tunnel over here, and tunnel interface over here is 172.16.12.2, right? So 172.16.12.2 is the tunnel IP on the site 2, and that acts as the gateway for PFW1. okay, so rest everything you can keep it default for time being. All right, so I click on OK there, and likewise for PFW2 you need to add the subnet 10.1.1.0 over 172.16.12.1 tunnel interface. So on PFW2 virtual routers, default virtual router, static routes, and add a static route where I can add one default route as well. So when PFW, this particular firewall, wants to reach the world of internet via the edge router, so I'll have a default route towards that gateway, which is 123.1.1.1. so let me add that. So it is my DR, that is default route to anyone via the edge gateway. Okay, so I think the characters is too long, or might be. Some issue with that. 1 second. So this is default route. Okay, so let's say the destination is 0.0.0.0/0, and the interface over here will be Ethernet 1/2, the physical interface. So let's go to Ethernet 1/2. Next up is an IP address, which is 123.1.1.1, my edge router IP address, and rest everything I can keep it as default and click on OK. Likewise, I can add another static route, which was to static route to 10.1.1.0/24 10.1.1.0, which is your branch 1 network. So this is 10.1.1.0/24. It should go over my tunnel interface. Select tunnel interface. Next up is an IP, which is 172.16.12.1, tunnel IP of PFW1, and rest everything you can keep it as default. Okay, click on OK. Yep, so looks good. Now comes the job of creating your IPSec VPN sessions, right? So create your phase 1, create your phase 2 sessions, right? So you need to watch the video for the steps over here. So now the step is to create the IPSec phase 1, phase 2, and IPSec peer configuration. Okay, I should recommend you to watch the video for the real steps, right? So yeah, let's do that. So first of all, on PFW1 I should establish the session. So what you do is on PFW1, click on network tab, under the network profiles you start with IKE crypto. That should be your first one, right? So configuring the IKE crypto, that this is IKE is used for phase 1, so that should be your first job. Okay, IKE crypto is your first job, and next would be to configure your IPSec crypto, right, which is your if this is your first job, then IPSec crypto is your second job, right? So IPSec crypto IPSec crypto is your second job. First job is iCrypto, second job is your IPSec crypto, and the third job is to define the IKE gateways, right, which should be your IKE's gateway. That should be your third job. Okay, and the fourth job is to define the IPSec tunnels, right? That should be your fourth job. So let me define that again. This is my first, my second is IPSec crypto, third is the iGateway, and the fourth job over here is to define my IPSec tunnel. All right, so let's go and configure that. I'm on PFW1, and make sure that whatever parameters you select for IKE crypto, IPSec crypto, for IPSec tunnels, the same parameters for encryption, for hashing, for authentication, the DH group, everything has to be selected similar values on PFW2 as well for proper negotiation to happen. So first I go to iCrypto. I keep on the default values over here. I can add a new IKE crypto profile, so I can see this is my site A IKE profile. Okay, and I define here the DH group, the authentication, and the encryption algorithm, and also the lifetime that I can use. So the DH group, let's say I select group 5. The highest group you select, the more or the stronger encryption key you will have. So I select here, say group 5. Authentication, multiple supported, MD5, SHA, and the varieties of SHA. So let's say I select MD5. Encryption, you have 3DES, you have AES, and various algorithms of AES. So say I select AES 128. Lifetime I keep it for 8 hours, and after 8 hours the rekeying will happen. Under advanced options, you have got post quantum IKE v2 additional exchange keys, which is kind of an advanced stuff. I'm not discussing that, not required as well as of now. So yeah, you are done with this. So define the IKE crypto profile, click on OK. Likewise, the second step, as I've told you, to define the IPSec crypto profile, right, the one that will be used for phase 2 negotiations. So add the protocol that I'm going to be used is ESP or AH, so I'm defining ESP. So this will be my IPSec profile for or I can say I'm like kind of defining what name I gave here. So it's IPSec site A profile. Okay, I think sometimes the spaces are not accepted, so it could be a problem. That's right. So yeah, define the encryption. So I define again the similar values, AES 128 over here. For authentication, I'm going for MD5. For DH group, I am selecting group 5. Okay, lifetime, keep it default. For phase 2, it is for 1 hour. And also you can define the life size as well, right? Recommended life size is 100 MB or greater. Alright, so in advanced options, again you have got post quantum IPsec additional key exchange. If it's required, you can define that. So yeah, those are the basic parameters required for IPsec profile or IPsec crypto profile for phase 2. I'm done with that. Third parameter is to define my I gateways. So who is my peer, right? So always careful, notice where you are currently. I'm on PFW1. So this is my IPsec site to site peer, which is IPsec I can say IPsec gateway to site B. Okay, something like that. IKE has of 2 modes, so I keep it to IPv2, the default one. Address type is IPv4. I can define what is the interface which is used to reach your site 2. So Ethernet 1/2 will be used to reach your site 2 on the public side. So I define that Ethernet 1/2. Local IP over here is my IP on Ethernet 1/2. And pure IP address, so pure IP address is 123.1.1.202 over there. And how do you authenticate? You can authenticate the peer using either pre-shared key or certificate. I'm using pre-shared key, but if you want, you can choose certificate as well, but ensure that you have the certificate to define that. So let us say I'm using a pre-shared key. I'm defining a password, so which has to be same across both the sites. How do you define the local identification? Based on my IP address, which is 123.1.1.201, and the peer is also identified on the IP address, which is 123.1.1.202. Alright, so I can just define this name as in the comment as well. Under the advanced options, you can enable passive mode if it's required, enable NAT-T, that is NAT traversal, if it is required. You can call the IKE crypto profile, because the IKE parameters has to be called for key selection or the DH selection. Yep, so I'm calling that IKE crypto profile over here. Yep, that's it. Click on OK. So your I gateway is defined on PFW1, and likewise the last option is to define the IPsec tunnel. So click on add on the IPsec tunnel option, name it as IPsec tunnel. This is at site A. Okay, oops, sorry for that. Tunnel for site A. Tunnel interface should be my local one, that is tunnel 1 over here. My I gateway, which I have defined an IPsec gateway towards site B, that's my I gateway. The IPsec crypto profile, which I have defined over here, so my IPsec crypto profile is called here. I can use the same name as in the comment section, and proxy IDs are not required, so I'm not going through any of the proxies. So yeah, click on OK for IPsec tunnel, and you can see the status right now will be as red because it's not been committed, as well as the interesting traffic is also not flowing, right? So this is one thing, and the next thing will be to write down your security policy, right? So you have configured the phase parameters. The fifth one is to configure the security policy for the interesting traffic to be allowed in the IPsec S2S tunnel, right? So I need to configure the security policy to allow the interesting traffic, but just for the lab purpose, what I've done is, when I go to the policy, under security policy, so I can add a normal policy which is say allow all, just for simplicity. Keep it universal. Source zone could be anybody, right? Trust, untrust, or VPN, right? Source address, I'm keeping it open to all. Destination is also I'm keeping open to traffic between any zone to any zone, right? Application is any service, any action is allow. That's it. All right, so I'm keeping an allow, so I select that and I can move this to the top. Doesn't allow all rule. Okay, so yeah, so any zone to any zone with any addresses, with any application, it is allowed to communicate. Just for simplicity, I'm doing that. Yep, commit. I can commit those changes on PFW1 and let it run. Likewise, go to PFW2 and follow the same process. So on PFW2, I think I have configured till the routing part. So my IPSec phase 1, phase 2, and the peers has to be configured, and the security policy has to be configured over here. So on PFW2, first step is define the iCrypto. Make sure you define with the same parameters. So this is IKE site B profile. DH group, I selected group 5. Authentication is MD5. Encryption is AES 128 CBC with the default lifetime. Click on OK. Under IPSec crypto, adding, this is IPSec site B profile. So protocol is ESP, encryption is AES 128, MD5 is the authentication, Diffie-Hellman was group number 5 with the default lifetime, and that's all for IPSec crypto. And under the iGate phase, I should define the peer. This is IKE gateway, which is towards side B. V2 mode, V4, my interface should be the Ethernet 1/2 that goes to PFW1. The local IP address is 123.112.02. peer address is 123.1.1.201. the pre-shared key is admin at 75. So I'm just defining the value. Basically, I defined this as admin at 1234. Okay. Local identification, it is based on IP address. So this is 123.1.1.202. Peer is on 123.1.1.201, and I can use the same thing in the comment as well. Under the advanced, you can select the IKE crypto, the site B profile, and that's it. So click on OK there and define the IPSec tunnel. So click on add. This is IPSec tunnel for site B. Tunnel interface is tunnel 1, iGateway, the IPSec crypto profile. Yeah, that's it. The proxy ID is not required. That's all. So click on OK there. And last thing but not the least is the security policy, which you need to configure. So I'm just giving allow all policy over here. Universal. Source zone could be inside, outside, VPN with any source address, any user. Destination could be again inside, outside the VPN zone. Any application is allowed, any service action is allowed. Click on OK there. It's on the first line, and that's it. I commit all my configurations over here. Alright, configuration is completed successfully. Looks good for PFW1. Let the configuration gets completed on PFW2 as well, and then we'll do the testing. Okay, so for testing, what we'll use is we will be using the WinPC sitting on the 10.1.10/20 24 subnet on branch 1 and this particular Linux PC sitting on that branch subnet 2. So I just open that. Okay, that's my Windows PC and that's the Linux VM. Okay, so I log into my Windows PC over here and just check if the IPs are configured correctly. So if I do an IP config, yep, it's 10.1.1.10 and the gateway is set to the firewall. And likewise, if I log into the Linux PC, if I look for the terminal and if I do an IF config, so I see the IP address is not defined here. Okay, not a problem. So let's go ahead and configure the IP address. You can go to the control panel, network. I'm defining the IP address over here as 172.16.1.10. Gateway is 172.16.1. I believe I gave 202 here. Just to confirm that, give me a second. Okay, the PA2 config is also done successfully. So under network, under interfaces, my Ethernet port, yeah, it's 172.16.1.202. okay, so on the Linux VM, yeah, name servers I can use 172.16.1.202 and 8.8.8.8 as the gateway, right? And likewise I can also go for a DNS configuration on PAFW2. So device, services, okay, my DNS is already defined here. Good. All right, so my configs are done. My devices have got the IP addresses set up. So if I do an IF config now, yeah, I can see the IP address is set up to 172.16.1.10. so I can go to my the LAN user of site 1 and from there I can ping to the LAN user of site 2, which is on 172.16.1.10. okay, so it timed out because of that particular phase, the IPSec VPNs that was taking time to establish, right? So it is working fine. Similarly from here to there, if you want to ping 10.1.1.10, you know, it's working fine, right? So let us go with the continuous ping. All right, and you can always verify using Wireshark. So stop, or before that, let's go to the FW1, go to your network, go to your IPSec tunnel. You can see tunnel status, it's set to green, right? You can verify that tunnel info over here. So what is the local IP, the local port, the peer IP, you know, how many bytes are getting used, how many packets are getting encrypted and decrypted, all the stuff, right? So yeah, and since you can see the bytes over here, that's 80, so 90, look into that, packets encapsulated, right? So the ESP headers are getting added for my ping traffic. Yep. So likewise in PFW2 network, under that, if you look for tunnel, right, if you look for IPSec tunnels, yeah, it's also there, tunnel info, look for the packet encapsulation, yeah, even that is getting increased, right? Yeah. All right, so last thing but not the least is you can always go and capture the packet on the outside interface, that is Ethernet 1/2 over here, and look for the captures. So you can see that you have got here all the payload that is getting encrypted via ESP, right? So you can look for ISACamp packets, right, which was initially used for setting up the VPN sessions, and now you can look for the ESP packets. So you can see your pings are getting from the outer header, right? The inner header is basically the LAN subnet IPs, but the outer header is that which is added after the ESP of 123.1.1.2.0.1.2.0.2, right? So if you actually open up that particular packet, you don't see anything, right? You see the packets are encrypted. All right, so similarly, you can go ahead and also verify using some CLI commands. So you can go to the, let us say, pfw1 and open its CLI, and certain CLI commands also can be used. Okay, so to check your IKE phase 1, okay, so you can use some commands. Just give me a second. Yep, so you can use the command like show VPN IKE-SA, okay, and you can see what is the peer address, what is the gateway name, right, when the session was established, when it is getting expired, the authentication algorithms that has been used, right? So the SPI index, SPI in and SPI out index, right, everything. Likewise, you can also use show VPN IKE-SA gateway, and then you can define the gateway name, which is IPSec gateway side B. You might have multiple IPSec sessions, so for a particular gateway you can define that, okay. And you can also do from the CLI, you can also start a test VPN, or start your phase 1 negotiation using the command called as test VPN IKE-SA gateway, and you can define the gateway name, which is IPSec gateway, and you can see the status. Likewise, for phase number 2, you can give the command show VPN IPSec SA, show VPN IPSec SA, that is to verify the security association, what profile is getting used, what is the remaining lifetime, the SPI index values over here, right, the peer address, etc. And likewise, you can also define with the respective tunnel name. So show VPN IPSec SA, then you can define tunnel and the tunnel name, which is basically your IPSec tunnel side A, and you can define the respective output if you have multiple tunnels, right? Likewise, you can use also the test command, so test VPN IPSec SA, then tunnel followed by the tunnel name, and you can see what time the initiation happened, and you are initiating a IPSec tunnel for this particular peer, right? Yep, you can use also a command called as show VPN flow, right, to see the overall output, what is tunnel interface used, what is the tunnel IP used, what is the status, right, what is the local IP, etc. And yeah, if it's an active tunnel, it will be listing you the output over here. All right, so I hope it is clear of setting up an IPSec site-to-site VPN. Please practice the same. In case any queries, you can reach back to us. We'll be happy to assist you. Thank you for joining. I'll see you in the next video.